All right. You guys ready to go?
What is all over your face?
It's just a G Fuel accident. Shaker broke open when I was shaking it and stuff got everywhere. Don't even worry about it.
G Fuel? What's that?
You've never had G Fuel before?
Mm-mm.
Oh, dude, you're missing out. Right now is actually the best time to get it because they're doing a buy one, get one free deal. So they got flavors like Miami Nights and even the Dragon Ball Z Kamehameha. So you can find whatever flavor you want to try and then get a free one after that. So get on there right now and get it.
You know, I'm actually all out of mine. I'll be right back.
Very well. I'm going to have to get on top of that then. I'll be right back as well.
A few moments later.
All right, I'm back. Let's do this.
Good. Have you energized yourself and get your blood flowing with the nectar of the gods that is G Fuel?
Oh, yeah.
Did you take advantage of the buy one, get one of select flavors?
You're damn right I did, brother.
Oh my God! Let's go! Let's dive into it!
I'm ready for it.
Oh! All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Barracks Party, and today we're joined with a special guest. We've got Tim Jensen from Grunt Style. So I would introduce your role at Grunt Style, but you've got like 5 when I tried to find it. What exactly is your role? Like, what are you at Grunt Style?
I do a little bit of everything. Sometimes I wash the windows. Other times I'm working on keyboards. But most of the time I'm the chief brand officer.
Chief brand officer, got it.
I've had a good run with the business. I also sit as the chairman of the board of the Grunt Style Foundation, and I am president of G3 Dynamics, which is another brand owned by Grunt Style. So wear a multitude of hats.
And then you've got your gaming thing too.
Oh yeah. Just started a new business, Rage 6 Gaming. It goes back into my game background. I got a degree that I've never used, and I was like, man, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and started during COVID, and finally developed this game over 3 years and brought it to market last week. So it's been fun.
I have a lot of questions regarding gaming for you, and mostly there's going to be some gaming discussions like a little bit later on, more of like your thoughts on the industry right now, because the industry right now is not in a good place. Especially with like larger studios, AAA gaming it's just a shit show across the board with them. And I have a lot of guys that I was going. I'm in school too. I graduated this semester, but I'm not going for that. I'm going for software development. But my school just got rid of the gaming certificate, and they got rid of it this semester. And they were telling people if they don't graduate with that certificate this semester, they are no longer able to take that program, and they have to find another program. And the first thing I thought was like, what if I was taking that and I was on the GI Bill and found out like right before I finished that I'm no longer going to be getting that certificate? I'd be fucking pissed.
Yeah. It's and I'm seeing that a lot across all these schools. Like the game design aspect of education is just evaporating.
I know.
It's peculiar to me.
I don't know what's going on with the industry, but we'll talk more about that when we get to it. Before we actually do, I wanted to tell you, so you've been kind of watching over me for the last 2 years, and I mean this in a physical way, not a metaphorical. Let me show you. So, a little backstory on this. Let me get it real quick.
I don't even know what I'm about to walk into here.
So you remember?
Does this look familiar?
Oh, yeah.
So my first ever IW hike. Annie quit it. My first ever IW hike was in Chicago, and Grunt Style was.
So it was Tim's.
It was supposed to be his. Was it? So yours when I went was supposed to be yours too.
No. The very first one that I did was his first one.
Oh, was it?
A couple years previous, yeah.
So Grunt Style had a cookout, like a barbecue, like the day before. So we all went to that, and you were supposed to be there, and you didn't get to make it because you're a busy guy. You had a whole bunch of meetings and stuff. So your cutout was just hanging out there at the barbecue, and people were just kind of like taking pictures with it, like, "Hey Tim, glad to have you here" and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, he's not going?" They're like, "No." And I'm like, "I can make him go." And they're like, "How are you gonna do that?" I said, "I'm gonna take the cutout and I'm gonna fucking bring it to the hike, and I'm gonna I strapped it to my mini ruck and did the whole hike with that cardboard cutout on my mini ruck. So like when anybody was taking photos from the back of the hike, you just see you poking out at the top of the whole
Just through
group.
the top of the element. Yeah.
It's just like
I went up to
just like-
Dan and I was like, "We can take this, right?"
yeah, and I was
And
just,
he just
I
he
would,
goes in,
I
he's
would
like,
expect nothing less from the IW crew. I'll tell you that.
and they're like,
it was pretty great.
somebody asked like, "You're gonna give it back, aren't you?" And I was like, "Probably not. I'm probably taking this home."
And those things scare the shit out of me. They're all over the offices between Chicago and San Antonio. They even made it to like little 12-inch tall guys, and they just stick them in the corners of the of a room. And
Oh
stuff.
wow,
It's creepy as hell.
That's funny.
my dog hated it. I
So
can
it's
tell
like
you
Tim's
that.
always watching.
My dog hated that shit. I walked home with that, and I didn't walk home, but I walked into my house with it. And my dog, he was just like growling and like dropping and like, what the fuck is going on right now, dude? And he literally wouldn't even come into the game room at all. He would just peek his head around the corner and just growl. It took him about a good week to get used to the fact that it wasn't real. It's not going to hurt you.
Man, I'm good with dogs. It's sad to hear.
I know. Well, he gets over it now. He knows it's not real. But if it moves, if it's in a different place than what he's used to, he'll probably freak out. But
Glorious.
but yeah. Anyway, God, I'm all Fleming. It's good to have you here, man. We've been trying to get Grunt Style and or even just you on here for a while. One of the biggest things is what we needed to rebrand because we used to be called the Smoke Pit. And a lot of places, a lot of podcasts are called the Smoke Pit,
Like Pop Smoke.
like Pop Smoke and stuff. So we wanted to kind of rebrand. But let's get to know you a little bit. So we already got over what your role at Grunt Style. You're co-owner too, aren't you?
Yeah. It was made a partner in 2017. That was a lot of fun.
Wow. So you joined the Marine Corps twice, right? First time in 1997.
Stupid.
Well, you just said you were a Marine, so
Yeah, like so in 97 when you joined the Marine Corps, what was your MOS? Because I saw you reclassed.
My original MOS was Amtrackers, 1833. And take the idea of joining the Marine Corps as a crazy idea, and then multiply that by 10 times to be the guy that drives the 28-ton ship or little Amtrak off the back of a ship 8 miles out in the ocean and deliver some grunts onto to the beach.
Oh shit.
That was the job, man. I hated that shit.
Don't remind me. I have a lot of bad memories in the back of those things.
I think
Not fun. Well, I mean, they are fun to a reasonable degree, but once you get that thing in water, you are rolling the dice, man. And you've seen over the years how many accidents of these things sinking to the bottom of the ocean or the bottom of the jetty, and 9 times out of 10 they're mostly operator error, like those little crazy bilge plugs. If you don't pump close those things off, you're gonna sink like a rock.
I imagine it's a super armored tracked vehicle that weighs tons and tons, and then you put it in the water, and it's like some weird evil genius was like, let's make that thing float. And someone was like, what? Yeah, we're going to make that float in the water.
Impossible.
You can't float. It's like anything can float.
my beer.
But I've noticed that most of the Marine Corps vehicle accidents are between the Amtrak and the Osprey. And
That should be not be operating.
no, I almost wonder, like, should the Amtrak also be another like piece of equipment that they should just kind of look at like replacing?
So they've been working on this for probably when I left the Marine Corps in the first time in 2001. They were just starting the AAAV program, which has been turned down, and abandoned. And now they got some other, creature that they're trying to breathe life into, and it doesn't even have tracks. It's like a beefed up LAV, right? More so like a Striker. And
Yeah.
it's like, man, it's kind of lame, right? The AAAV, man, that thing looks sexy. It had tracks on it. It had the planes would come down and the vehicle would almost be riding on top of water with a 30mm Bushmaster on it. Like, this thing had balls. Whatever they're concocting right now, it's like, oh god, and already like $3 billion into it, and it's not even
It's not even working.
even working. So, it's at some point the Marine Corps is going to have to figure this out, right? Because those Amtraks are, they're old. You got a lot of them that are, refurbed from Vietnam. And, of that first gen that came out during the end of the war, and they're still operating, right? They go to Dermo, they'll get stripped down, they'll refurb it and send it back to the fleet, and some other sucker ass Marine is going to get in that thing and try to drive it to a boat.
Pretty much. I mean, they just passed their financial screening, so.
But that's impressive, right? The Pentagon can't even pass a budget. And
I feel like there's some gun decking going on. I don't believe it.
Yep.
So,
Like,
since
you
you were
got-
with Trax, are you deathly afraid of apricots?
I was about to ask that.
I don't know about any of that lore. It's about as truthful as charms, right?
We dove into that like a month ago, and I was like,
Yeah,
what?
I educated them about that because I remember when I was out with Trax, the guys were talking about apricots. I'm like, what the fuck is? You're like the third person talking about apricots, and I wanted to know about it, so they told me, and we talked about it on a couple episodes ago, and we dove into like the history. I didn't know the full history of it, but it goes all the way back to World War II and some tank that had an apricot fucking seed in it. It was insane.
Yeah, same story with
it goes back
LV.
to those LVTs, right?
Mhm.
Probably, if the Marine Corps wants to go back to something, like just go back to those things. Those things were freaking awesome.
All reliables.
Most tracked vehicles were reliable back in those days. Nowadays, it's like everything's an R&D nightmare, trying to make some like more stealthy or more cool looking. Like look at that. What was it? The F-22. Like how long was that in development for? Like whatever that new stealth fighter jet is, and like they're like, it costs like $17 billion to build one, and it's like not really that good, I guess, from what I've heard. And the helmet alone for the pilot is like 100-200 grand. It's crazy.
It begs the question: at what point of like, are we just spending money, right, for things that just aren't necessary? Like, we're talking about we got like a $1 trillion NDAA. Where the hell is all that money going?
Pockets.
So when you got out of the Marine Corps in 2001, how long before you got back in after 9? Like, so how long was it from the moment you got out till 9/11 and after you rejoined?
I got out in I think it was like April 2001. I was in North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, armpit of the universe.
Facts.
And I was going to go back to Raleigh because that's where my family was living when I joined, but during the time period they all kind of displaced and went back to Chicago. So I was like, oh god, I got to go back to Chicago. I don't want to do that, but I did. And was living with my godmother for a period of time, and I joined the Union, and I'm working at the new Cook County Hospital at the time. I was a floor installer, union floor installer, and it was great work, great job. And we're listening to Mancow in the morning, and the planes start hitting the buildings, and I was like, holy shit, we are not we're going to war, and I'm not a Marine any longer. So that was September. I started trying to find reserve battalions and this, that, and the other in the Chicagoland area, and like I didn't know how difficult it was to get back into the Marine Corps.
I've
right?
heard
I
it's
thought it was
really
gonna be
tough.
something super simple.
I've heard it's
And
really tough.
it wasn't. Yeah. So I spent a while before I got in with the I&I here in the city, and joined up with them, and I don't know anything about the reserves at this point. Like I&I, like I heard about it in when they're teaching us in boot camp about that shit, but I've never heard about that. And so all the I&I work was just inspecting the reserve force to make sure that they're to standard. I'm like, this is boring. And then I learned that the battalion was going to be stood up to go to Iraq, and I was like, oh shit, like get me on that, get me under that unit. And it's a strictly 0311 or an infantry unit that was weapons company, 2nd Battalion, 24th Marines. And I was like, well, like what does that mean? Do I need to like change my job? And like, yeah, you're gonna need to do a lateral move and or something along those lines, because the MTO doesn't allow for non-infantry MOSs. I was like, well, okay, cool. Like I hated Amtraks anyway. I'll become a rifleman. And so I negotiated with the I&I commander, Major Hamster, and I was working for a major at the time. His name was Major Cushing, who would later he was an aircraft guy, and he would later join Weapons Battalion or Weapons Company and be the JTAC. And I did some really cool missions with him. He was a fun guy. But yeah, so got that opportunity to go into the unit, and I joined with them. I think that was like ended 2002, maybe beginning of 2003, and spent some time with the reserve unit. Then we went to ILOC. We were sent out to California. Spent 6 months there training up for operations in Iraq. And that was pretty interesting in the sense that Italian commanders like, it's going to be Hue City all over again. We're going to be going into Fallujah, blah, 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 blah. And, we're sitting there like, getting amped up like, hell yeah, this is going to be great. And then, 325 comes back and they put a couple of staff NCOs in front of our unit, and they just got their ass handed to them. They took like 25 KIAs. It was a lot of wounded, and so that really threw a wet blanket on everybody. Like, okay, this is a little bit more serious than we thought. And then we go into country. I was on the advanced party. I landed in Iraq in 2004 as a infantryman, 0311, and became a squad leader there while I was there, and led a bunch of badass mofos through the Triangle of Death, and had a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude. Fucking that's how long were you in your second enlistment though?
Let's see, 2003 to 2005. So, I was riding on that IRR, right? So,
yeah,
in the Marine Corps, you really are signing an 8-year contract.
I think it's like that.
I had
for
to
all
sign
of
an
them.
extension. Yeah, I think it's pretty much everybody. And then I had to sign an extension because my IRR time would have ended right before I was leaving. So they made me sign an extension on that to stay in. So it was like 8 years, probably 7 of them, operating, 8-9 years, 7 of them operating. So it was fun. Do it again. If it was 20 years of combat, I would have definitely stayed in longer. But when we came back from that deployment, we were gonna go back out, but it was FOB security. I'm like, absolutely
Gross.
not. You guys are gonna be doing is getting in trouble. I know this game.
I was very late to the boat for when I joined. I joined in.
Did you get to the boat?
I was late to the show. Okay, is that better, Doc? I joined in 2011. I didn't actually get to my unit until 2013 because I was on delayed entry. So they made me wait 6 months after I signed the contract, and then I went to basic training, and then I went to airborne school, and then I got sent to Italy with the 173rd, and they were in Afghanistan when I got there, and everybody was all amped up. We're like, we're next. These guys go every 6 months, and I'm like, fuck yeah. And then they get back from that deployment, and they're just like, that was the last one. We're not going anymore. And I was like, what? And then the chain of command got replaced with guys from Ranger Battalion. So we ended up doing nothing but just ASERF, like Army Contingency Response for Europe, because Syria was cranking off. Russia the whole Ukrainian thing started in 2014. So we were going to Ukraine a lot. That was pretty much my whole active duty enlistment, was just going to the Baltics and going to Ukraine to like train the Ukrainians to fight Russians in case it ever happened. Spoiler alert, it did. Yeah, so like I was late to the bus on that one, and it kind of sucked, but yeah, it was a good time. I almost joined. What made you join the Marines of all branches?
There was a couple reasons. I didn't want to go to college when I left high school, and I graduated early, but in North Carolina you have to do 4 years of English, so I had one class my senior year, and that was English. It was so lame, but I spent most of my time fishing until that.
You only had one class your whole senior year?
Yeah, it was great.
That's great. Did you get
I went to
your
the wrong state? Goddamn.
Did you get your gaming degree before the Marine Corps or after?
I went in my 30s.
Oh yeah.
when I got to the degree. But yeah, so I didn't want to do the college gimmick. I didn't want to go get a job. Right? It was like, man, and I'm transparent in my life, right? Before I joined the Marine Corps, I was making pretty good money dealing drugs. And I was big weed seller back in the day.
Street pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, street pharmaceuticals. That's where I learned, the metrics, the metric system. And so I was like, I don't want a real job but I don't want to continue doing what I was doing already. So I was like, and previously in my life, I learned that my grandfather was in World War II in the Army Air Corps, and it was a pretty cool experience learning all that. And not really anybody in my family knew that he was in the military, and I'm a big Southside Irish Polish family. I've got 32 freaking cousins, and nobody really knew that knew that. And so that has always stuck with me. And so the time came up, and I went to the Marine Corps. I was going to join the Navy first, but the office was closed, and I thank God for that.
I didn't join the Air Force. The office was fucking closed.
It's funny because, like, more or less, that is exactly like the cycle of my enlistment starting. Was I first talked to a Navy recruiter, and they blew me off. Like, I was like talking to this person, like, well, what do you want to do? And like me being like in my early 20s, I'm like, I want to go to Buds. And they're just like, oh yeah, you could totally go to Buds. And then you go to pre-Buds and all that shit.
Great.
And then then I was just like, so I was actually getting my PT up because I was a little overweight at the time. And I kept trying to talk to the recruiter. I'm like, so what are my options here? Like, when can I go take my ASVAB and all this stuff? And they just never responded. So I was like, fuck this. I'm going to go talk to the Marine Corps. So I went to the Marine Corps recruiter, and he was there, and he looked at me. He's like, so what brings you in today? And I was like, well, I'm thinking about joining the Marine Corps. And he's like, thinking about? There's no thinking about it. You either want to be a fucking Marine or you don't want to be a fucking Marine. There ain't no thinking about being in the Marines. And I'm just like, I don't want to be in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
So I walked out and went across the street.
So my first MOS that I signed up for was infantry, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be an infantry Marine, blah, 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 blah. But, there's that saying, don't smoke your own supply.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got caught on a piss test, and I lost that.
Oh, no.
So I had to, sign a waiver, and I went in as did my ASVAB, all that shit, and they're like, "Oh, you got a high GT score. You should be an Amtracker." I'm like, "Oh, come on!" And I didn't know what that was. Right? There's a 1800 series. I'm like, "Okay, that's artillery or this thing called Amtrak. So is that a train? I don't know."
They're probably like, "Oh, you're still a rifleman. You still
Every
get to do all the
Marine
grunt
or
stuff."
rifleman.
Everybody's an infantryman in the Marines.
That's
Dude, when I was fresh out of boot camp, I was at a restaurant with my family, and this old Marine comes up to me. My mom, mom's always proud and all that shit. She's telling everyone, he just got out of boot camp. And this old timer is like non-vet, and he's just like, oh, hell yeah, brother. And he starts talking about his time in the Marines and shit. And he goes, so what's your MOS? And I was like, oh, rifleman. And he's like, every Marine's a rifleman. What's your real job? And I was like, motherfucker, that's my real job.
I don't know what else to call it.
I'm a basic bitch.
You got soft hands, brother. You got.
We're 75, and we're talking to those young devil dogs. We're gonna be saying the exact same shit, and they're gonna be like, "This fucking guy."
I know. My MOS.
Back in my day,
I tried enlisting into the infantry, and they told me no. They said that it's full. You're going to be waiting a year to get into infantry if you want it. And I'm like, well, what the hell? I said, I want a combat MOS. I don't want to just go do some like S1 bullshit. So they're like, well, there's a 13 Fox forward observer. And I'm like, well, what does that do? None of the recruiters could tell me. It ended up being a really fun job because I ended up being a JFO, which worked with JTACs a lot. So I was the guy, like I went to the JFO school, got certified for AC-130s, naval guns, all the cool shit. So I wasn't just stuck with just calling in mortars and artillery. And the JFO teams were always like, especially in Ukraine stuff, like we would just get like, hey, all the JFOs are going to go to Slovenia for some training, just the 8 of us, and get away from battalion. and go do our own thing. So we'd go to some Baltic country and just do like a 9 to 5 actual training op with some of the JTACs, recertify the JTACs, call in some, training airstrikes and shit, and then just go out afterwards. It was a good time, like drinking and cooking out on the OP while we're dropping bombs on shit. So it's just like, it was fun.
Yeah. But I always say, like, the best conversations I ever had when I was in Iraq was with Marine Corps Air. Because, in the Marine Corps, and I'm sure they do this in other branches, I don't know, but I've listened to the Army over the radio, and they're not very professional.
No.
And
no, not at all.
So, you know how it goes, like, hey, this is me, blah, 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 blah. And, these guys, these Marine aviators, like, yeah, man, what's going on? I got a whole bunch of shit on me. What do you need? I can come down. I can, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, okay. And then you're trying to be professional and read off your coordinates and all this shit. And they're like, yeah, give me about 5 minutes, man. I'll be down there. I'll do a gun run, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, man.
Pilots are the coolest shit.
Pilots are completely different. Like, it's so much fun talking with pilots because they're just like, hey, just tell me the minimum.
A Southern California surfer.
Oh, 100%.
That's every pilot.
So you didn't retire from the Marine Corps. You just ETS?
Yeah, I got out, man. Like that second deployment wasn't something I was really excited about. But like I said, if it was just combat operations that we would have been involved in, and working outside the wire, I probably would have ended my career in the Marine Corps, or at least went the distance. Right, all my friends, from that unit, that were sergeants with me are all like master sergeants and freaking sergeant majors now. I'm like, God, what it would have been like if I stayed.
I had this impression that
you're already a first sergeant. What are you talking about?
That's why I was like confused when I found out you didn't retire. I'm like, wait, why does everyone call him first sergeant?
So that's a funny part, right? So I get shit on all the time, like, oh, you were really a first. I'm like, well, first of all, guys, I call myself the Grunt Style first sergeant.
Yeah,
right, and that's because we have this internal command structure that goes back many, like 2013, right? And as we were building the culture within their business and we're attracting all these veterans into our company, it was like, let's build something that makes sense that people are going to be able to drop into and be like, I get the command and control aspects. I know who I report to. We have rank structure that goes all the way through the company. And at that time period, I was the most senior person outside of the founder. So he's like, we're going to call you the first sergeant. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
And it was funny.
So were you like the guy that would go around the office, like knife handing everybody, fucking getting everybody in trouble, yelling at everyone?
Early days, I did not make a lot of friends. I'll tell you that.
Didn't you even like?
But I was very business focused. Like it's like I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to make sure that the product was being made, ordered, made, and shipped out the door. And that was incredibly difficult during a period when the business was just skyrocketing, right? I mean, when I came online, the business hadn't even made $1 million yet. And, by the end of that year, we had, flew past, $2 million. And by year 3, we're doing shit like north of $10 million in sales. So it was madness the first 3 years. And, just trying to get order and compliance going within the organization was extraordinarily difficult.
I remember seeing Grunt Style stuff. I remember before it was in many stores like it is now. I remember only really seeing it. You could only get Grunt Style shirts online, and then our posts, our PX started having them. And that was like 2014, I think.
Yep.
And you could really only find them on a PX. And then after I got out of active duty, I happened to like go to like some outdoor store and saw them, and I was like, "Holy shit! They actually sell these here now." And yeah, it's
amazing.
I'd only ever seen them as like unit shirts.
Yeah, that's we owned that market for a long period of time. And before all that, like when I was in the Marine Corps in '97, like you go down to Ocean Slime, and you see some of these the stores on the boulevard there, right? You had 762 designs, you had Sergeant Grit. I think the only cool brand that existed during that time was Ranger Up. And I wasn't a Ranger, so I couldn't wear that stuff. So like when fast forward, how many ever years before I came into Grunt Style, like we repositioned, cool military threads, or at least cool designs, in those early years, and just, kind of flipped the whole industry on its head, and imagined it to what we have today. Like, we're the heavyweight champions of
I was actually
veteran apparel.
I was actually really curious about like how, so obviously, like, when Grunt Style came out, there was still a lot of like other, brands of like, military veteran clothing lines. And
That was like the thing that people make, like, talk about.
back
You
in
get
those
out, you
days.
start a t-shirt company.
But like Grunt Style seemed to have been able to take it farther than the other ones were, like it become more successful. Like what actually helped that happen? Was it marketing?
I think it was just a lot of the marketing, a lot of the content that we've created over the years, and honestly, just being really authentic, right? We weren't positioning ourselves to be something that we weren't. We were creating these social events that we were bringing all these people together and really making a tribe, right? And that tribe, it's the easiest and most effective marketing you can ever do, right? Is that free marketing. And if you bring people together and you let them, you give them those moments in time where they can rub their the DNA of the brand can be rubbed off on your consumers by creating these unique events. That's how you do it, right? And we really accelerated, when we turned on the switch of Grunt Fest. That was really one of the big, defining changes within the organization, and how we were communicating with our audience. And then from there, we just kept on doing more, creating more unique content. Making funny videos. At that time period, I think it was us and Matt Best, and
Like Black
a
Rifle
few of those
guys.
guys. Yeah, but Black Rifle wasn't even a thing back then. Like, they didn't come on the scene until mid 2014.
Yeah, Black
so,
Rifle was like
we're kind of
very small. They weren't even a thing yet. It was just Matt Best and Rocco and those guys just making funny videos.
Yeah, they had Article 15 clothing, and
Yep, I remember that.
that was a thing for a little bit. So yeah, I mean, so the market was ripe, right? And for let's say cool brand to come in and start doing some different aspects of marketing and delivering their product, really separated us from everybody, and it put us on a path that we were able to grow to where we are today as the largest veteran patriotic apparel brand in the space. I've got my social media is reaching over 5 billion people annually. Last year we put over 5 billion impressions into it. So, there's nobody that's got a voice like ours, and I'm certainly not bragging, right? This is just hard work that over 11 years we've culminated into this thing that is just something that I find very unique and a lot of fun.
100%, yeah.
So
And you mentioned the social media stuff. Is that where the bedtime stories came from?
yeah. So the bedtime story is pretty funny, and how that all came to be. Is my business partner and the founder at the time. He's like, "Hey, I've got this idea. You should do this." I'm like, okay. Well, it seems. Let's see what happens. So we spent some time imagining of what that would look like, and we bought this trailer that we were going. And going from event to event to event, and it was parked out in the parking lot. And we're like, okay, so this is going to be the scene. It's going to be a retired first sergeant that's living in the parking lot of Grunt Style, and all he does is scream out the window at all the employees that are fucking off, and just read bedtime stories. And the first season was a banger, right? It was interesting. It was, if you look back into the first season versus where we are in like eight or season 9, I can't remember where we're at. The production quality was extraordinarily low. But the punchlines were there, right? And I think that's what, again, we delivered different content. It was something so different and radically different from anything in the space. It just took hold, and from there we've been able to build out a franchise. I mean, last year I signed a contract with a press company where I'm for the next 3 years I have to deliver one book a quarter. So I'm writing these things now, and they're coming into like children's Golden Bear style books.
I think I saw a picture.
Is it for the Marines? Is it so they can read better?
Yes, absolutely. It could be an MCI.
They won't do it if it's an MCI.
Talking about marketing, I've always been curious about this. And when they said that you were coming on, I was like, oh, I might get an answer. So with the whole like the whole stigma of Grunt Style being like you're either like you're a boot because you wear it when you first come in, or like you're that retired guy that can never, you're a bro vet. On a marketing standpoint, was that something y'all had to combat, or was it more of like all press is good press, whatever?
Right, at the end of the day, what it really came down to, we were just, even to this day, we are producing quality product and content that really exemplifies what we believe in, right? And that's instilling pride in self, pride in military, pride in country. If you believe in things, and you believe that our responsibility as Americans is to know, celebrate, defend the Constitution for the next generation of Americans, then we have a tent for you. Like, come party with us. Come party at Grunt Style. We're not the cool special forces guys. We're not the these any of that shit. We're just a bunch of conventional warfighters that went and served our country, and we had an idea that we wanted to share what we learned and the values that we were imprinted with from our time in the military, and celebrate that. And because we live in one of the greatest countries in human history, and it's something to be celebrated, and that's where the marketing really has come to be. And I've the boot stuff, I see all the memes like, oh, look at the guy, it's your standard outfit. They're funny. I laugh at them, right? I also laugh at the bro vet shit, right? And I also laugh at all the bro vets because they're funny to me. So at the end of the day, like, if you have patriotism and you love your country, then our brand is for you. And you don't have to be a military person to wear our product. In fact, at one point we were heavily leveraged in the veteran aspect, right? Where majority of our consumers were active duty or veteran. Now, I mean, that's probably 30% of the purchasing of the customer profile. We've reached millions and millions of people. I'll put it to you this way to tell you the total scope and size of our business. Since 2009, we have sold over 50 million t-shirts.
There's a lot of t-shirts.
That's a lot of shirts.
I think half of them are probably in my closet.
I have.
That's like all I wear around the house.
Yeah, they're my go-to gym shirts.
My closet is the same way. Every year I have to turn down, and I throw about 6 garbage bags of clothing into the local homeless shelters and things of that nature. But and it just keeps on going, man. I'm extraordinarily grateful that I'm a part of the brand, and that I've been able to work with such amazing people that just truly understand the mission of what we're doing, especially when it comes to like the foundation and all the other aspects of work that we do.
Yeah, most definitely.
As Chief Branding Officer, one of my favorite shirts that you guys have is the gaming aspect wise is the Super Battle Bros shirt. Did you have any part of that?
Let's see, the last design I made for the company was probably 2020, maybe even before that. And a lot of those designs between me and Daniel, the founder, we were creating a lot of those, and then we had a great design team, and it was really, really fun. Like I remember one shirt that was made as like the Zelda, like is the wizard holding the
I think I've seen that one too.
It was Link. It was Link holding the M16 over his head, saying, whatever the fuck it was that he said. But that shirt went off really pretty hot. But but that's something really cool with the veteran community is that largely gamers. Like that's all we did when we were in the barracks, and and that still continues.
And that's why regiment's gotten so big, is because we all realize like we're just a bunch of nerds just sitting in the
barracks. We're a bunch of nerds.
I tell you. when you know, as a young PFC in Courthouse Bay, Camp Lejeune, you know, there were 2 times of the month I would be able to go out. That was the 1st and the 15th. Everything in between, I was sitting in the barracks pouring shit and wondering how I'm going to put gas in my car. So you know what we were doing, you know, we'd sit in the common area and we'd play D&D. And that's what was going on at that time period.
It's crazy to me how many military people play D&D. Like I never saw it coming.
Have you ever
honestly. It's
played
like
D&D, Doc?
I'm not that creative.
You don't have to be
that's
creative to play it. You don't need to be a DM.
I'm just saying, it's a level of nerd that I was never able to hit. And just,
I take offense to that.
No, it's not a bad thing, but it's just like it's like an achievement. It's like a level of nerd I've never been able to achieve. And like in the IW server, like it's the biggest group that we've got in there.
D&D
it's
is
huge
fun.
and Reggie. It's crazy to me. I never knew so many military played D&D.
So my wife's cousins,
Dude,
my wife's cousins play D&D, and I never played it before. I always kind of wanted to kind of get into it a little bit, but I played one campaign with them, and I was like, this is actually really fun. And then Baldur's Gate came out, and I was like, I'm not really sure if this game's for me. And the next thing you know, 200 something hours later, I'm like, I love this. I want to make my own character for D&D and actually get into this. It's fun.
Speaking of D&D, I saw that we have Midjourney in common. Do you use that for your D&D stuff?
I use AI for a lot of things. I use it in a business in Grunt Style. I use it in the Rage 6 game business. It's a game changer, man. Like, you know, and people get all upset, like, well, who's doing your art? Fucking AI doing my art. Why would I pay somebody when I can do it for free?
That's the thing. AI is so being in IT stuff, like graduating, like our teachers talk to us about, like, get comfortable using AI as a tool. And that's the biggest thing, and a lot of people are very uncomfortable with, is using AI as a tool. But I've used it as a tool, and if you use it right as a helping tool for your stuff, it's an awesome tool. It's not perfect, but it's great. And that's the thing of why the layoffs keep happening, is people are refusing to like just adapt to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a classically trained artist. You know, when I went to school for it, I've been drawing ever since I was a young kid, teaching myself. I'm a painter. You know, I've independently published 7 comic books when I had a business before Grunt Style. You know, I've been an artist for a very long time.
Your face was priceless.
What are the comic books?
The best comic I ever did was called Awakened, and it was I got invited to C2E2 Chicago and Wizard World Chicago, and in Wizard World it was rated the best independent comic book of the show by the WizardCon people, and that was pretty wild. And I was in college at the time putting that whole book together, and had a great writer, Ivan James, here from the city, and you know, he's been writing all sorts of different things over the years. And we created, you know, a bit of a relationship, and we put several comic books together, and it was a lot of fun. But you know, when it comes to the AI stuff, it's like, hey man, like this is the future. Like, if you know, it's not going to put the artist out of business, right? But it's going to take, you know, entrepreneurs, certainly entrepreneurs, to the next level, because, you know, when you're bootstrapped or cash strapped, you know, you don't have, you know, the expenditures to, you know, bring in a highly talented artist. Well, you got AI that could do the next best thing, you know, and move forward with that. Like, that's, you can't deny it. And any artist that wants to sit there and throw shade against it is probably a starving artist.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So when
those the people that are suffering, that are like, this is bullshit.
Yeah, I know. Like I see it all the time. Everyone's just like, why would you use AI? You could have just asked me. I'm like, well, why don't you learn how to use AI and then like take your shit.
Why don't you stop charging me an arm and the leg?
I don't mind paying an artist for doing their work. I mean, especially if their work is great. But for even the good artists are like, hey, AI is a thing. AI is a tool. I'm going to use it, and you know, use it where I can, where it makes sense, and not just be the end all be all of my creation, essentially. So your pursuit of game development, I actually had a question about this. So what got you even wanting to do that? Regiment in this podcast is also partnered with BR Paradox. BR Paradox is a company that specializes in custom-built PCs. So if you have an idea for a cool custom-built PC, they can definitely give you the hookup on that. But if you're not in the market for custom PCs, BR Paradox has a wide array of pre-built PCs that you could choose from at great prices. And if you're not in the market right now for a new PC, BR Paradox will definitely hook you up with an optimization. Optimizations take around 10-15 minutes to do, and they're very awesome. I highly recommend them. I had my PC optimized by them, and it's never run smoother since. BR Paradox also has a list of renowned customers ranging from LeBron James, Chris Brown, members of FaZe Clan, and even Angela White from your favorite orange and black site, if you know what I mean. So head on over to brparadox.com to get yourself a PC today or an optimization. And remember to use promo code REGIMENT at checkout. That's promo code REGIMENT down here at checkout.
So this goes back to playing D&D, right? I've been playing D&D since my earliest memories. I think I was playing second edition when I was like 8-9 years old. And I grew up with that
second edition. When did that come out?
Like the 80s, 90s, something like that.
Okay. I was like, not a thought at that point. Okay. I'm just curious.
Okay. You know, and you know, I've been fascinated with that for my entire youth growing up, like playing Hero Quest, right? Like, oh my God, that was my favorite game of all time. Like, I would, you know, try to get all my friends together and, you know, on a Friday night to play that. And like, then finally girls got into the mix and like, we're not playing Heroes Gate anymore or Heroes Quest. But you know, I've been it's really captured my imagination, and like for me, my imagination is where I live. I love just thinking and creating. Like I've got a creator's mindset. And you know, during our time in the Marine Corps, you know, there was several individuals that I went to boot camp with, went to schools battalion with, went to MCT, to schools battalion, to the fleet with. And during all that time, we started a campaign at MCT, and that campaign went all the way through my first enlistment. We played that thing for about 3.5 years on one campaign that just kept on going and going and going. And it got to the point where I started writing all of it and keeping just notebooks full of just these stories that we were going through. And I've got like 3,000 pages of that one day I'm going to turn it into a book. And it's all based on the, you know, I don't know how close you guys are to Forgotten Realms or anything like that, but you know, during the 90s there was the time of troubles where the pantheon of the gods were, you know, changing, and my imagination was captured by this god called Cyric, and you know, all these things that come along with that. And you know, so I was like, you know, I'm gonna write this story. So I've been writing the story and, you know, analoging all of that. And then I got back out and I left the Marine Corps, you know, really didn't keep in contact with those guys. You know, that story, you know, got put into books and put into the corner and forgotten about. And, you know, I was doing the union construction stuff. And I'm like, man, I fucking hate this. Like, it's great money. Relate. Like, yeah, it was cool work, right? I got to work in some of the biggest high rises of the city of Chicago, and you're out by 2:30 every day, right? But you know, the behavior was not something that I was really enjoying, and that was, you know, from like 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock, you're at the bar getting drunk every day. I'm like, I could do better use of my time. So I quit the union and, you know, went to school. And as I was thinking about that, I'm like, you know, what am I going to do? Like, I got this 9/11 bill. I can really do what I want. Like, the BAH is great because I live in Chicago, but let's make it worth my while. So I really sat down, thought about it, and I saw, you know, a game theory, game design, you know, package that was happening in a school in the South Side. That's it. That's what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to do video games or just creating games.
Was this before Grunt Style or after?
It's 2009.
So before.
This is before?
9. Yeah. So I joined Grunt Style 2013. And yeah, I took a job folding T-shirts at this company.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you that next, like after the game development question. So like, how did you end up being at that level, like just a T-shirt folder, and climb your way up the ladder to be a co-owner and the CCO and all that stuff? Like, how did you climb the ladder like that, and how long did that take?
Man, like, you know, I was At 24 years old, or well, no, I was 27 years old. 27 years old, I was running multi-million-dollar jobs as a union carpenter, right? Fourth year apprentice, and then going into a journeyman. And I'm running jobs like, $3 million jobs. There's guys on, everybody on the job is older than me in their 40s and 50s. And they're like, "Who's this punk kid?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm not no fucking punk kid, man. I'm a war veteran." And,
Thank me for my service.
Yeah, it was terrible, but yeah, I mean, I've been in leadership most of my adult life. I've been really responsible and focused. So when I came into this is how it all. I'll give you the whole story. So I graduate college. I opened up this design business that I was doing. We had an opportunity to create a video game for Nerf, Hasbro. We pitched the executive team, and they're like, "We fucking love it," and end up we weren't able to produce what we wanted. It got through all the concepting phase and the modeling phase, but we couldn't produce the game. And then comic book stuff, and my wife's like, "I have this beautiful studio." It was over by Wabanzi College on the far west side. The beautiful river view. It was like the Daily Planet with like a newspaper style floor. You had glass windowed, offices that like JJ Johansson, and you're like, "Oh man, this is cool ass stuff." Designers everywhere. But my wife's like, "Hey Tim, it's not making any money, and we've got a family, and you need to find something else." So started looking around, and I'm applying it everywhere, right? I have the degree. I tried applying to Activision, a few game designers here in the city of Chicago. Quickly learned that my skill was not as good as or as competitive as everybody else. So I didn't get any of those positions. I interviewed well for them, and they told me that I had potential, but I just wasn't in the scope of what they were looking for, and that's fine.
Honestly,
So,
probably
I
a
was looking
blessing.
around.
Probably a blessing given how
absolutely.
Activision is right now. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're looking around. I'm looking around. I'm applying at like Toys R Us and all these just places.
All the companies that don't exist anymore.
Yeah, right. It's like 2011, 2012. The economy's still like kind of shitty. And I see this ad come across, like, this is where I was looking for work, guys. Craigslist. I see this ad come across Craigslist, and it was for a military apparel company, a veteran-owned apparel company. They were looking for a graphic designer. I'm like, "Oh, I can do that." Right? I'm a veteran. Everything's checking up. So I apply. I get an interview. I go down there. I bring my portfolio. I walk into the building. I'm like, "Yes, this is everything that I've always wanted." Like, I feel the energy. I sit down with the founder, and he's looking at my portfolio. He's like, "Man, this is good stuff, but it's not what I'm looking for." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, so get the fuck out of here." That was like the first time. Yeah, it's the first time in my adult life. I'm like, "Holy shit, something didn't go my way." So I'm driving home thinking about what I'm going to tell my wife. And, she's working at Metro. She's one of the senior purchasers at the time. And, she, got me an interview as a train conductor. I'm like, "I'm going to have to be a fucking train conductor for my life? Like, fuck this bullshit."
You went from tracks to trains.
Right? So, I'm driving. I'm brooding in my own, depression, and the phone rings. I look, and it's the founder of Grunt Style, and I'm like, "What the fuck does this guy want? He just told me that I'm not what he's looking for." So I reluctantly answer, and he's like, "Hey, man, I know that you were really looking for this role, but I have something else for you. I really want you on my team." I'm like, "Okay, what is it?" He's like, "Folding T-shirts." I'm like, first thought, can't go home without. I said, "I'll take it." Didn't even ask what the wage was. He's like, and that was a Friday. He's like, "All right, show up on Monday, and we'll get you rocking and rolling." So showed up Monday folding T-shirts, making $10 an hour, and I was 30 something years old, 30, 31 years old, and that was the beginning, right? And I saw this it was like 5-6 people in the whole business, right? Bigger than my hotel I'm in right now, and we're right next to a methadone clinic in Schaumburg, Illinois, right? And
That's where my wife's from.
Yeah,
Fucking
I'm
Schaumburg.
like, there is all sorts of opportunity here. So I just started doing more. I was asked to do. I was asked to fold T-shirts, and a lot of that came to, and this is where like it's the spirit, right? And for anybody that's listening, like this is what separates the wheat from the chaff when you're being looked at, right? And it's crazy because nobody would do this in their right mind, but I saw the opportunity. I saw that things needed to be done, that the customer wasn't getting service, and we were backing up on orders, yada yada yada. So when I'd clock out, I would put another 4 hours of work in on my own time, not getting paid for it, right? And I started doing a lot more of different things during that time to really help build the business, and that was being recognized. So I went from folding T-shirts to be a press operator, from press operator to team leader, to production manager, to the operations manager. Now I'm in control of all the production, the fulfillment operations, buying materials, creating relationships with vendors on how to bring all these different aspects into our business that we needed to make product. And I'm sitting there saying, holy shit, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, guys, but we're gonna figure it out.
You took the initiative.
And I just took and really, there wasn't anything that I wasn't willing to learn, right? And that's the biggest part, is like, anybody, you can do anything you put your fucking mind to. And I know that's a cliche, and blah 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 blah, but at the end of it, like, I'm a walking example of it. Like,
You mean you weren't handed it? What are you talking about? It wasn't given to you? How fucking dare these people?
Man. How many times I got punched in the face for fucking up inside the business because we didn't know what we were doing, but at the same time I was the only one that was willing to take the chance to try these things and say, you know what, let's go out and try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? And that went a long way. So I was able to scale quickly with the business, so much so that I was made a partner. I was 3 years into the business when I was made 4 years into the business when I was made a partner, and that was probably one of the greatest days outside of my private career. That I was like, wow, I'm like, everything. People are really recognizing that the effort that I'm putting into something, and that was a really cool moment.
Yeah,
I mean, I've always loved your story, just from like when you talk at the IW events and everything like that, because it's impressive to me, like where you mentioned where you started from, Marine Corps, and then just business wise aspect in itself to where you are now, and like you've got your own gaming company. You're like the chairman for the Grunt Style Foundation and everything, and like we kind of go through similar things in Regiment, where a lot of these streamers and everybody will be like, oh, no one's coming to my stream. Why aren't you guys making me the next Tim the Tap Man, Nick Merckx, and everything? And we're like, what kind of work are you doing to put into it, right? Like it's got to go kind of both ways. You can't just like hit the go live button and be like, why am I not a success?
There's a mentality that needs to shift within certain parts of the veteran community, and one of it, like even my buddy. So I got a buddy who's he's medically retiring from the Army. And he told me, he's seen like what jobs are looking for, and not a lot of times they're very reluctant to hire the veterans. And the biggest reason is because of there's a lot of vets that get out and they have this like thought where they're owed the world. And there's like an entitlement with a lot of them where it's like they don't want to put the work in, they want it just to be given to them. And I actually kind of saw this happen in the trades myself. So helmets to hard hats is a big thing. I got out of the Army and I went in to be a pipe fitter. So I worked for the union.
We all know you worked the pipe.
Yeah, I loved working the pipe. So like I ended up I ended up being a pipe fitter for like a few years. Like when I got out, I went to school for it. I went to welding school. I got into the union. I started a pre-apprenticeship, but I really also quickly learned that the trades, depending on which union you go to, are not veteran friendly. And especially if you're still in, like I was in the National Guard. I got out of active, went National Guard. And the owner of the company kept asking me when it came time to give me an apprenticeship, when are you getting out of the National Guard? And I was just like, when my contract's over with. And he's like, well, when's that? And I'm like, I told you, May of 2020. And he's like, well, we don't think you're ready for an apprenticeship because you can't commit to the time and stuff. So I kept getting passed over an apprenticeship because of that shit. And I learned very quickly that maybe the trades just aren't for me. And I loved doing what I did. I really did. But because, like like the community that was there with the trades is like it in a way felt similar to the military but different, with a different dynamic. And like you said, all they want to do is like go and party or go out to the bars after work and then just talk about how much they hate their life and shit. And it's just like, dude. And then you talk about gaming and shit and all the stuff that we're into, like, and honestly, all that stuff is therapeutic. I'm sure like Blake and Doc, you guys can actually all three of you can relate. Gaming is great for mental health, you know, and like getting them to understand that.
Yeah, 100% community.
Yeah, it's the community.
I remember Blake has a similar situation. Like, I think, I don't want to tell your full story, but I remember you had mentioned to me that like your neighbors or whatever completely doubted your content creation.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of those things, like when you tell somebody when they're like, so what do you want to do with your life now that you're out of the military? And I'm like, well, I've always dreamed of being a content creator. And then people are like, okay, so what do you really want to do with your life? And I'm like, same thing with that dude. Like, what's your real job? All right, everybody's a rifleman kind of deal. And it's like, no, this is what I want to do. It's like, yeah, no, I'm not an idiot. I understand I've got to do other things first to get to that goal. I understand this isn't like something I can do full time right now, which is always funny. People always look at that and they're like, okay, but like, how are you going to make money? Motherfucker, I got a full-time job. Like, I'm not dumb here. Like, anyway, but yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, you come out with your dreams and all that shit, and then people kind of shoot them down because they're like, what do you really want to do?
And
you
then,
know what I mean?
And then
like, figure out something else.
People are just like negative in general, right?
Yes.
When somebody has a dream, right? What is the first thing that the people do? They shit on that dream, right? Because
Exactly.
they don't have a dream
Or their
They're like,
dreams
what's your
never
backup
worked out.
plan?
Like for me, I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a country singer, and everyone's like, "That's okay." So avert your expectations, bud. And I'm like, "Listen, I understand the music industry is not exactly the best thing, but then next thing I know, I'm in Nashville playing at the Bluebird Cafe, and granted, COVID kind of really railroaded that whole dream, but like I shifted fire to something else." And I mean, like if you look at this podcast as an example of like, hey, like 3-4 years ago when I was working as a pipe fitter, I had something that I wanted to do and I wasn't doing it. And then I was like, I'd really like to do that. And then like all the people in the trades are like, that's stupid. There's just work, fuck family and everything else. Just be all that exists is work. Drink my beer and shit. And then now here I am. I'm talking to the fucking co-owner of Grunt Style and just hanging out with everybody and on a podcast. It's like, you can do shit. And yeah, and Blake.
Talking about like, you know, everybody's, you know, we live in this society today. It's instant gratification, right? Because, you know, I don't know
TikTok.
where my phone is, but you know, you got this stupid device that, you know, that everybody thinks like, like I can get anything, blah, 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 you know, all that stuff. But, you know, what people always forget is there's hard work that comes with that. You know, I'll use what I'm doing with the Rage 6 game company as an example.
It's a great segue too.
well, first there's other stuff.
Like, it's all about failure. And I just want to use this as a quick example. Like you know, I woke up this morning to find out that my Google ads that I'm running on the company has been suspended for because I fucked up the ad marketing, right? So I just blocked myself out of ad marketing because I didn't understand what I was doing and the way I was running these ads. And I do this for a fucking living, guys. Like I run the whole fucking port of that within the Grunt Style business, and you know, so like you got to go out there and you got to work it. You got to you know, go through those failures, and you know, you just can't walk into something and think that you're just going to be the best at it, right? It's just impossible to think that way.
How dare you make mistakes and not learn from them?
Before we get into like the rage, what were you gonna say, Blake?
I was going to say, just while we're not too far away from it, the whole like feeling entitled and stuff, like for veterans. I'm probably the freshest out. Going through, I think it was TRS or whatever, when they're like, hey, you're going to get all these programs, you're going to be given all these programs, you be given this money to go to school. Like there's a lot of in that when you're getting out, they tell you you're going to be given a lot of things. Yeah. They fail to tell you how hard civilian life is actually going to be when it comes to you working your ass off. Like everyone has this fascination while you're active duty that you're going to get out. Life's going to be easier. You've gone through the hardest things in your life in your early 20s already because of the military. Well, little do you know, you're going to get out and in 6 months, you're going to be in your first apartment, first house, and you're going to be like, oh fuck, I didn't learn to properly manage my money, so now I am struggling to make ends meet this month. Holy shit. And then you go down the spiral of, I wish I was still in the military. You start missing your friends. That's where, not to get too deep, but people have the thoughts of suicide and stuff like that because they weren't ready. They were promised all these things and they never got these things that they should have never been promised in the first place, because nothing is promised. Nothing's like given to you.
No.
But when you're getting out, that process kind of triggers your mind that it is. So
financial responsibility is a big thing that they try loosely, I say this, is they try to teach it to you before you get out, but whether or not it actually sets in the minds of a vet when they're getting out is honestly an individual basis. Like, I'll use myself as an example. I got out, I had money like waiting away for me, and I spent it all within 6 months. Like, I went through 80 grand in like 6 months, and I was fucking broke.
I would have loved to have been your friend.
Yeah, like, I was going out all the time. I was buying bullshit. I was spending my money on food, booze, traveling, and all this other stuff. And next thing you know, I go to buy a coffee at Quick Trip, and my car gets declined, and I'm like, what? And I look, and I'm like, all that money's gone. And I was like, dude, I can't believe I went through that.
Repoed.
You got your car repoed? Thankfully, I never got to that point. What I did was
Because
like,
I was stupid with my money.
yeah, we're all stupid with our money when we get out, and like that's what I did. I bought a motorcycle. When I was active duty, I bought a motorcycle in Italy. Probably one of the worst financial decisions I ever made. But I used to have a motorcycle before that, so I bought one and I got it at a low interest rate because I knew that going in, because I wasn't like an 18-year-old who never had bought anything in their life. So I had a low interest rate, but the problem was that I was being irresponsible with my money when I was in, and then when I got out, I used the money that I had waiting for me to pay it off, buy a car. So I didn't have a car note or anything. And but the rest of it was like, all right, so you still had when I got out, I still had like $65,000. So what did you do with it? And I was like, I spent it on everything I saw, and became extremely broke at the end of it. And like literally, like that was 2017 when I lost all that money, and now I'm like still trying to recoup it all. But yeah, like it's
guys, I'm really excited for these struggles when I get out. I appreciate all this.
It's a shitty lesson that everyone has learned through other people, but it is not one you will truly learn until you've been like bottom of the barrel with your money, trying to scrape together a few quarters. You know what I mean? And it's just like you just will never understand how the value of money until you are like don't have it, but you have bills to pay, and it sucks. It's a lesson you wish was easier to learn, but man.
Didn't you had a couple other questions as far as like the process of getting out and everything like that?
Oh yeah, no, I was curious. Really, I think a lot of it got answered, but one part of it was, with you going through Grunt Style and working your way up, as far as a motivator, because the biggest thing that we hear in the veteran community is I've lost my purpose, right? And it's something you obviously have to fight for and find yourself. So what was kind of your motivator? What was like your purpose getting out and climbing the ranks and everything like that?
Yeah, it was only until recently, and this is a great question. I appreciate that. It was only until recently that I've come to terms with a lot of things that the driving factor in my life was my all that were looking down on me, man. I didn't ever want to shame them. Having given their lives, and not being able to come home and be with their families, that was really the driving force for me. It was like, hey man, like, Tim, it sucks. Today sucks. But you got to keep going, because fucking Hammond's not here, and he'd be behind you right now if he was. And that's really what it was, man. Like, especially when it came to the Grunt Style aspect of things, like, there are so many of us that have lost really, really close friends to the global war on terrorism. I think Grunt Style represents a lot of the GWAT era, and we had this idea and this opportunity to really shape it into something that would be respectful of that entire community, and that was really the driving factors for me, and that was my purpose, was to make sure that that wasn't shaming anyone that had given their life for what we believe in this country.
Yeah,
Phenomenal answer.
Nice.
And yeah, finding your purpose is a huge thing too. There's a long time where I had a really hard time finding my purpose and even getting out. Like I had a plan of what I wanted to do. That plan falls apart. I didn't have a plan B. And then like trying to figure out plan B, I had, I was going through relationship issues. During all that, Doc got a chance to see all that shit too. But like, yeah, like I kept getting laid off from my pipe fitting job. And I was like, I don't know what my purpose is anymore. What the fuck am I going to do? I got to go back to school. I don't know what I'm going to go to school for. What do I do with my life? Like my relationship of 10 years had failed. And like, I was just like, what the fuck?
Bitch took the couch and everything.
Yeah. Took the couch and left me with a house that I couldn't afford. And I was like, I need to figure something out. And I did. And then I met my wife, which was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. But my mental health was struggling for a long time before that. And after that happened, it went even more downhill. And just finding that purpose was just impossible. It felt impossible. But yeah,
it was difficult. And like, I like, there's a whole dark side of that time period that I haven't talked about. Right. And I'm talking between 2005 and, 2009, 2010, all those things were happening. All those great things were happening. All the terrible shit was happening too, man. I got addicted to drugs real bad. I was fucking a raging alcoholic. I really couldn't come to terms with a lot of the loss that I experienced when I was in Iraq. I was married at the time with a newborn, right? I came home to a 1-year-old. I'm like, okay, I've been killing people for the last 6 to 7 months, and now you're asking me to raise a kid. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that?
Turning that switch off is like something they don't tell you how to do.
Why can't you be normal?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I spun out of control, and I tried to take my life. And there's a documentary about that,
which I'm gonna watch because I found out about it like recently.
Yeah, I mentioned it to him the other day for them to check out. I checked it out after the conference for IW, and I was like, I'm not crying, you're crying.
For the viewers and listeners, it's called The Bullet. It's called The Bullet, and it's on Amazon. So check it out.
You have to pay for it, but in all disclosure, I don't get any of that money, so you're not making me rich, guys.
No,
for those that want a heartfelt understanding of obviously Tim's experience, but just the general veteran experience for like a non-veteran to understand a little bit, and then just like the motivating aspect because of how you turned up, where you are now.
Yeah. It's
a great
it's been a long road, man.
Absolutely.
And that's where I spend a lot of my time with the Grunt Style Foundation is making, because if I had experienced all that, like I'm just one dude, right? That did one deployment to Iraq. There are guys out there and gals out there that have done 12. I know a guy that did spent 45 months in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's like,
good.
What?
45 months?
Months. Think about that.
That's insane.
So it's like, what if that is affecting me? There's got to be far more people out there that are experiencing much worse. So I spend a lot of my time there, and I put a lot of attention and my personal efforts into it. What we did with the PACT Act and getting toxic exposure codified into law was something of a great achievement. I'm so glad that I was a part of that. I feel like I did some good work for the boys upstairs, and we're doing some work now when we're trying to address this overprescribing of pharmaceuticals inside the Veteran Administration. And we're next week, members of our team will be sitting down with the Secretary of the VA to talk about overprescribing, and we have a policy change that we'd like for them to push forward, and that's surrounding informed consent. So what's happening in the VA right now is that if I go in and I start talking to them about my mental health, they're going to say, "Oh, you're a great candidate for Zoloft or Trazodone or Paxil or whatever other psychotropics that is the flavor of the week."
That's
flavor of the week.
My buddy at the North Chicago VA. So I go through my therapy through community care. which recently it's going to get changed because I lost my therapist and now I need to find a new one. And I've been waiting for 2 months because now the mental health outpatient supervisor has to approve the consult to give me a new referral for community care. And my buddy goes to the North Chicago VA and they have like 2 therapists, and he sees that therapist once every 5 months. And when he was there,
If it doesn't get canceled.
Right. And he's there and the therapist is just on his phone and he's like, I'm sorry, is my conversation boring you? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. What medication do you want? And it's like, what the fuck?
You know how dangerous that is?
Yes.
Like when I was they were giving me Zoloft and Trazodone, man. Like I woke up 99 miles away from my house coming home from work, and I'm like,
holy shit,
this has got to stop, right? And it was Portage, Indiana, right? And I take the same way to and from work when that was going on up the fucking double nickel from the suburbs, and I ended up in Portage, Indiana. I don't know how the hell I got there. So that was enough for me, right? And that got me into a bit of a change. But it wasn't until recently that I was really putting a lot more effort into my own mental health and that aspects. And I've been transparent all along the road here. And it's been psychedelics that has truly given me the freedom and liberating me from this depression that has been around me. And it's not from my military career. I've suffered depression all the way back to my childhood, but it was really psychedelics that has given me the ability to address these things and really understand what is causing the depression, and has put me in a better place. Like I am living a much better life, with my friends, my family, my loved ones. I haven't smoked a cigarette in over 3 years, and I quit drinking. Like if psychedelics can do that for me, then like we have a winning substance here, fellas.
Absolutely.
You're like the veteran Joe Rogan.
So the PACT Act. So I recently discovered that you had a role in that. So like, how long ago did you start the push for it, and what exactly was your involvement with it?
Question. How the involvement started, I was walking through the office one day just doing the normal shit that I do, and I heard somebody talking about toxic exposures, and it piqued my interest, right? And it's coming from our custom sales team. And I believe that was like 2018.
Oh wow, that far back?
Yeah. And it was one of the salesperson was talking to this lovely little woman named Rosie Torres, and she was the chief executive of a 501c3 called Burn Pits 360. I'm like, Burn Pits? I know what burn pits are. My fucking best friend died of that in 2012. So I'm like, what's going on? And they presented the problem to me. I'm like, let me take the account. I'll take care of this. Yada yada yada. And reached out to Rosie and started a conversation with her, and that put us into this conversation, right? Of like, oh man, like what can I do to help, right? If anybody knows me, the first thing I'll say to somebody is like, how can I help you, right? And I mean that honestly when I say that. So she took me up on what help I could provide, and we started laying the road, right? And they've been doing this for 10 plus years at that moment, and they were their last bit of sanity because they weren't getting any traction. And it was when we came on, and these are not my words, this is their words, right? When we came on to start helping them is when the tide started turning. Then they started getting the attention of people on Capitol Hill. And that was a very interesting time up until the point where I'm sitting in Senator Gillibrand's office, and we're writing law.
Wow.
Right?
Mm.
Tim Jensen, the little fuck off from fucking Gardner, North Carolina, used to sell drugs back in the day, sitting in the senator's office, writing law. And I'm
You
doing that
two
with
can
John-
make it, guys.
Right? That's it.
Same thing.
Anybody can do this, guys. I'm not somebody special, right? So we're sitting in there, we're doing all that, and then everything kind of schisms off, and now you have the Team Act, and you have the PACT Act. The Team Act wasn't going to go anywhere because it was garbage, And then, what we were putting together with the PACT Act was, what was the biggest problem that we were trying to achieve? Well, we understand that there's all these exotic cancers that were happening within the cohort of the GWAT individual, and they were happening at very young ages that were outside of standard science. And, these men and women were being turned down from the VA for healthcare. We're like, okay, so, what do we need to do? Well, let's bring presumptions forward to where the veteran does not have to present a case and to the VA saying I was here at this time. We took all that off the table and said if you had a service ribbon or with it or combat pay within these areas, you are presumed to have been exposed, and if you come down with any of these 22 cancers that we have identified, then you are eligible for treatment within the VA. That seemed like a great win, right? So we started beating the rails on that, bringing all sorts of people to the conversation, using our platform to educate people. We created this program called Gaslighting the Warfighter, and that was a really great instrumental tool in getting people educated. And then we fly to Washington with an understanding that the bill is going to be passed, and during that time period, the Republicans were losing their ass on the Hill to the Democrats. The Democrats got the CHIPS bill passed and the inflation bill passed, and McConnell said, "Hey, we're not going to give the Democrats any more wins. So this PACT Act thing, stop it." And 14 Republicans changed their vote in the 11th hour, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" So we rallied up at the VFW. We went out to and we understood that we need to go flip these 14 people back into positive or a yay vote, and or hitting the halls, talking to all these people. I had Senator Ted Cruz office. I went in there with my merry band of dysfunctional veterans and widows, and I get kicked out of his and then escorted off the property by Capitol Police. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Right. And we're hearing from everybody else, the Republicans aren't moving. The Republicans aren't moving. We're going to lose this bill. So I was like, I looked at Rosie and I said, Rosie, we have to make a decision here. And we're eating at fucking Chick-fil-A at the Metro. And she's like, what is it? I'm like, I'm not going home and you're not going home either. We have to sit on the steps until they pass this law. And she's like, are you serious? I was like, yes, I'm dead serious. So I started calling everybody I knew, and I said, I'm going to be sitting at the Hill. We're going to be protesting the actions of the Republicans that vote at the last minute, and I need help. And fucking thousands of people descended on fucking Washington, D.C., and 6 days later, we passed the law.
That's awesome.
You just camped out for the next 6 days.
It's crazy to me.
Thunderstorms, all sorts of shit, man. It was crazy.
It's what the Marine Corps trained you for.
It's hell yeah. I was just sitting outside in the bullshit until we get the job done. It blows my mind that when it comes to anything related to us, like the veteran community, it's always either the first on the chopping block or the last to be considered on both sides. And I don't understand.
Don't care.
They don't care about us. They use this for what they needed, and then let's just when it's time when the bill comes due to for our issues, they don't care. It doesn't. What does it benefit them?
I equate it to, we're all Star Wars fans here, right? I mean, it's easy to say, right?
I've never seen them more than once.
I really equated it. There you go. I really equated to the veterans of this country are the clones of the Republic, right? We've been thrown aside after we've been used, and they'll bring the next generation of people to come in to fight the next war, right?
I am replaceable.
And the country and its population, we've done a really good job since Vietnam to say thank you for your service as I walk over your homeless ass on the street.
Yeah, I know. I hate it that it's even still like that to this day. I'm noticing that I'm starting to notice that even the GWAT vets are starting to get the Vietnam vet treatment when it comes to the general population of people, like the normal everyday people, like how they view us. And my first IW hike and it was in Chicago. The first IW hike, we were supposed to go to the Navy Pier and take a group photo.
That was the one that you missed.
Yeah, that was the one that you were going to go to and you didn't, but I brought you notionally.
We're not chastising you for it. We're just saying this was the one.
This is the one that you didn't get to go to. But the people the people in Chicago that were just like yelling at us, they're like, why don't you pull out of, Missoula? And I'm like, we're just a bunch of dudes just trying to like make sure that everybody's mentally okay. And we're just,
I don't even know when I'm going home. What do you mean?
and then like we go to the Navy Pier and they wouldn't let us on the Navy Pier because of our flags. They said no American flags or anything on the Navy Pier. And I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. They wouldn't let us do it. So they said we couldn't collectively be on there with like, because they looked at it like we were just some kind of like political statement, but we weren't. And then cops kept showing up trying to shut us down regardless of the permits that were there. I'm sure Dan told you about this shit. But yeah, so like
I'm very familiar.
And it was like they would not let us on the Navy Pier with American flags. I'm like, you have like 10 American flags at the end of your pier. What do you mean we can't go on with ours? That doesn't make any sense.
Veterans.
Yeah, it's
Right,
Of the Navy Pier, we can't go on.
Yeah.
Right,
I just had something similar happen last year. I was at the Salt Lake City hike, and we're walking down the street, and then next thing we know, we start hearing this lady in this park. She's yelling at us, and she's like, "You're all racist fucking baby killers, you pieces of shit, fuck you." And like we're all looking around, and we start laughing because we're looking around, and it's just a gaggle fuck of mixed races of men, women, just kind of just hanging out. We're all just trying to have a good time and make new friends, all this shit, and we're just like, do you have eyes? Like, do you see? Like, what are you talking about? Where the fuck where's the racist comment coming from? The baby killer thing is just uneducated. Where's the fucking racist comment coming from? Holy fuck.
Chicago's the same exact way. They're just like a bunch of whites. Someone said one of the hikes, it was like, who are these people? And it's a bunch of white supremacists. And I'm like, literally the most mixed bag of cultures that you could ever see are walking right now. Where did you get the idea this was like a white supremacist movement? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, we got like Clayton Biggs out here.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into any type of political conversation, but I'll just say this: like, we have found ourselves in a very interesting moment in our history of this country, that we have allowed Marxism to pop its ugly fucking head up, and nobody's punching it into oblivion.
I agree. I agree.
Veterans got to stick together.
So,
I honestly think veterans. We are the example. Like, we are the example of the next generation of American service and exceptionalism. And we need to be that example for everybody else. Mm-hmm. We are the example of multiculturalism. It's like you can't go to any military unit and be completely diverse from all aspects of human life, because we're all coming from the bottoms of society to try to get away from the poverty and the abuse or whatever it is that we were trying to get out of small town USA into something bigger and better for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So I think that we are the perfect example of what this country represents. Mm-hmm. And I think as we are listing politically within our country, and we don't have any real purpose other than going off and fighting endless wars. Like, we have to be the generation of the warfighter that says we've had enough, and it's now time for the adults to take over, and we're going to push all of you little politicians that have no vision or values to the side. And include some of the veterans that are on the Hill right now that are just raking in the dollars and not doing anything for their people.
Mm-hmm. This is the first time I think I've ever considered myself an adult.
I feel like that was a little jab at Dan Crenshaw there.
Never met him.
So shifting over to gaming. So you said Rage 6 was the name of your gaming thing?
Rage 6 Games. Rage 6 was the call sign I used in Iraq.
Hell yeah, dude.
How'd you get that?
We were well, they took the weapons company and they broke us down into several different aspects, right? So they came up with this concept early 2004 called teams, mobile strike teams, and we took what was conventionally known as CAT teams and really made them mobile infantry, and and we were Rage. There were three truck platoons Rage 1, Rage 2, Rage 3. And I was part of Rage 1, and my call sign was Rage 16.
Okay. I didn't know if you were like an angry guy or what was going on there.
The other call sign I had was Pork Chop, the Pork Chop Express, because I love Big Trouble in Little China.
I'll ask where your Discord name came from. So that makes a lot of sense.
What's up, guys? Regiment in this podcast is brought to you by G Fuel, the ultimate energy drink for gamers. G Fuel uses a special blend of vitamins, antioxidants, and other natural caffeine resources to keep you from having those jitters or even that crash that you normally would have from other energy drink brands. So whether you're having a long gaming session or you're just having a long day and need a pick-me-up, G Fuel definitely has you covered. G Fuel also has a wide array of flavors to choose from. But if you don't know what flavor you want to try, they also sell variety packs on their website, and they even come with a cool shaker. So head on over to gfuel.com and use promo code Regiment at checkout to get up to 30% off. That is Regiment, promo code Regiment down here at checkout to get up to 30% off. So what kind of games does Rage 6 do? It looks, because the one I was looking at for the Omega project looks like a tabletop RPG.
Exactly it. So you got the manual right here. Essentially what it is it's one saga, right? I want Rage 6 Games to tell one saga, one story, and once that last story is done, I'll turn the business off, and else, maybe start something else. But the idea here is to create a game that is multi-expansive. It will cross over into several different game engines, but it will always come back to the original game to make that game bigger. So, for example, Omega Project Infamy is the first game that will come out in this series. It's a sandbox tabletop RPG that was built off of the Blades in the Dark engine, if you guys are familiar with that brand. As you're playing with that storyline, it's setting the examples of the universe and the world and getting you really familiar with what's going on. The next game will come out, which will be called Nox, and the subsequent the 6 games that will follow Infamy will be essentially standing up the 7 deadly sins of this universe that you're living in. And each game will stand up an army. So it's the battle of the 7 armies, and every army will represent a sin, relation to the 7 deadly sins. And as you're playing through this, every game that you beat will unlock new aspects within Omega Project Infamy. So with Nox, you're standing up a drug cartel, right? And you have to build this new enterprise and get this drug infiltrated into every district of the Federation. And once you beat that game, you have then achieved the champion of gluttony, right? Now that the champion of gluttony is established, there will be a splat book that will go back to Omega Project Infamy and update the rule base and change all the factions and all of the particulars of the universe with what you achieved in Nox. And that will be going on for the 6 subsequent games. So the third game that will come out is called Money Power, or I'm sorry, it's called Velvet Underground, and it's taking a page out of the OnlyFans enigma that's going on. And here you go and you stand up a streaming channel, and you've got to sign contracts. You got to kill your competitors. You could do all sorts of things. So if you want to do porn, or you want to do a DIY segment, it's up to you.
But doing porn is what it is.
Right? But you build followers, and you build this whole social media presence, and then once you achieve the win-loss of the game itself, you stand up that next champion of sin, and the Splack Book Money Power Respect will queue up the new world rules that happen in Infamy. So as you're playing all these side games, and they're card games, they're engine builders, they're resource management games. So I'm exploring all these different game engines that are out in the world right now, and bringing them into this story that adds to sandbox of infamy. So, essentially you're getting a game that is growing with you as you're playing more games and is completely endless.
That's pretty cool.
Up until the
Up until the end.
Yeah. So the end is you're starting to learn as you're playing this game that oh my God, like I'm the person responsible for raising all these these champions, right? And the final game will be like a Warhammer 40K style skirmish, where you're going to be playing against me, the game designer, the architect, one of the Omegas, and you have to do this culminating battle, and you're going to die. You're just not going to.
You're gonna die. You're not gonna
die.
I'm not gonna let it happen.
Because I'm the
Spoiler.
You're gonna die.
You're not gonna win.
I'm the DM, and it's my fucking rules, bitch. But what you don't see on your end, on my end, I have the website for Rage 6 up right now, so that everybody that's watching could see this. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm gonna put the links to Rage 6 and the Kickstarter for the Omega project in there.
So where are you at as far as the development of it right now?
The first 3 games are complete.
Wow.
I put the Kickstarter out for Omega. More of like is for me, like to say, hey, I've never done this before. I want to see what these crowdfunding things are all about, and it gives me the ability to test my marketing prowess outside of what I've been able to do with Grunt Style, right? So, I wanted to do it that way. I set a pretty big goal for myself of $20,000. Will I hit it? I hope so. But I don't think that it's going to keep me from developing the game, right? So. Once if the game is successful through Kickstarter, I'm going to bring it all over to Rage 6, the website, the store there, and really start building out this experience. And the website is more of like it's more of a resource for the game than it is just a regular website store. So if you guys are playing around with it, you guys will know, like, you go in there, create an account, and everything that you do inside of the Omega project game systems is done by a crew chief that is the leader of your gang. And so you're going to set up an account in Rage 6 as the crew chief, and it's going to give you all these stats that you're going to track, right? And it's going to be listed in a forum that out of I'm gonna put my hat on and tell you how old I am. You guys ever play SOCOM back in PlayStation 2?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We're not that far off in age, except for Blake. Blake's kind of young. But.
So when SOCOM was really at the peak, right? They had these clan wars that were going on. I was part of the warrior clan of warriors, and we were pretty awesome within that environment. And on a separate website was all the people that were participating in these clan battles. And every Wednesday and it was like Wednesday and Saturday night, you go on the website and you'd see who you're fighting in a clan battle, and you do 3 maps and you'd have to fight, and whatever team won, it would be recognized on the website. So I've taken that idea and kind of incorporated into this, to where once you're like about 4 or 5 games, about 4 games in, I'm going to release skirmish opportunities to where you can pick other clans or crews that are listed in the website, and you can battle them for faction, right? For faction leadership and ranking, and it's all gamifying, and because people want to say I'm doing this better than you are, and they want to be recognized for that. So you have a listings on the website that who's the top crew in Omega. And then who's the bottom, and then it's always a flux, and there's gonna be a way to get that into the bigger game and the lore that's always happening. So it's a very big idea game, and one that I've not seen anybody in the space trying to accomplish. So I'm super excited about the idea and bringing it to life.
I think it looks almost like cyberpunk.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. World. Like, it sounds like, it looks like you got a lot of cyberpunk inspiration with this.
Yeah. So the idea of it is the game, the story of the game, which you don't really learn till later, is there was a time, let's call it time today, where these group of scientists wanted to create a black hole, right, and see if they can create a black hole in the Large Hadron Collider. And they're doing all these tests, and at one point they manufacture a black hole, but they didn't calculate the weight of gravity into the size of this microburst, and this thing envelops the entire planet and shoots the planet into a new dimension, right? So that new dimension is a cyberpunk type style dimension, but the scientists were operating the experiment were so close to the event horizon that they're stuck in the black hole, and they become what we would consider gods, right? Because they're outside of the world, and they're able to influence the world through the fourth dimension, and that's how they're bringing these sins into the world. So this is more of a game for the seven scientists that are stuck in the event horizon. There's no time, there's no hunger, they're just going to live forever, and they're like, well, let's start a game of it, and let's start introducing these sins into the world, and every 3,000 years, like the page out of the Bible, that there will be a big battle, and whoever wins that battle gets to be the Lord over the next evolution of humans, and yada yada yada. So it's kind of got some dogmatic ties into it, as well as like cyberpunk futuristic, fourth dimension, big thought, time dilation. There's a character that can walk through time and bend time to their capacity.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. And when you were talking about you haven't seen really anybody create a game like this, I think a lot of that has to do with the state of gaming right now, and how publishers seem to have like this end-all be-all oversight of every single project that's out there when it comes to gaming. I mean, we saw it. So if you look at like EA right now, EA was probably the more recent of the mass layoffs that they have, because looking at it, 2023. And it's weird because publishers are having their most profitable years ever and laying off more people. And last year we saw, I don't know, I think it was like 6,500 layoffs over 2023. We are 2-3 months into 2024. We've already seen more layoffs in the first 2 months versus the entirety of last year. And no one really understands why. And you have independent developers like Arrowhead Studios with Helldivers. You have Pal World, these games that became super successful, and it's starting to kind of shift the industry on its head, showing that we don't need publishers anymore for these games to be successful. And like,
it's not just publishers that like their only job is as the public, like Activision, where they don't have any part of the actual development.
Right. And like, I like when you were talking about how you would try to apply it at Activision, I was saying it's probably a blessing, because Activision, I don't know what the state of them was back then, but lately it's just been one shit show after another.
Back then, that was like the golden age of COD. So.
Right. So what are your thoughts on like the gaming industry right now, and like basically the state of it?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, right? It's it's a massive maker, right? It's over $800 billion in revenue, and I think it's over $1 trillion at this point. But it's going through a revolution right now, and not an evolution, right? It's going through a revolution in the same sense that TV went through the revolution with streaming channels, right? Where like I remember like back before streaming was a thing, I was always like, can we just get to the point where I can watch a movie released from my home? And here we are.
We're slowly getting there.
We're slowly getting back to cable, honestly, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I think with the advancements of technology, which allows opportunities for independent gamers and developers to come to market with their ideas and without having to go through a publisher, and you got all these other aspects out there that can help you get along with that. So like when I'm talking about the Rage 6, there's print play games, and there's a couple other organizations that I've worked with by creating these prototypes that I would never have been able to do years ago, because they just they weren't available, or they weren't to scale to help the small guy, independent guy that has an idea. One aspect. The other aspect is when you look at open sourcing of Unity or or when you look at the advances of Unreal, like we're at Unreal 7 now, like
5, yeah.
that is optimizing the gaming development community so much that they're like, hey, we don't need you anymore because the engine is already providing for that, and we don't need to build all these extra things to make the experience even better because it's all there. Like you're getting, I think it was 2 trillion I'm forgetting it right now. Polygons. You're getting 2 trillion polygons inside of a screen, right? At this point, like that is unheard of, right? And then you're maximizing that with sound that's able to bounce off every one of these planes and give you like real stereo sound surround that you would experience at a theater inside of a game. Like that is unbelievable. So imagine all the jobs that Activision and all these big game development companies are carrying to maximize those opportunities that the engines weren't able to provide only at the base, right? So you got a lot of optimization that's happening within the community as well, and driving profits, right? Let's just call it what it is. Like the gaming businesses see that they're making hand over fist, and they're doing it with shit games, like
Call of Duty.
Like, yeah. Like how many over and over and over again. To me, the only, I shouldn't say the only, the most respected developer publisher out there that gets my attention is Rockstar. Right? They continue to, they captured my imagination with Grand Theft Auto 1. And they're going to do it again next summer with their latest release, which is going to blow everybody's minds.
The only thing about
Hopefully
that's
what I hope for.
And I agree with you with Rockstar. The only thing that sucks about that whole thing is that Rockstar is under the umbrella of Take-Two, and Take-Two does not have a good track record of things. I mean, you look at the 2K, NBA 2K, and like how they have implemented like gambling shit into the games, and they tried doing that with GTA 5 with the casino shit that they had going on. And I mean, Rockstar. It's weird that Rockstar, yes, they are under the umbrella of a pretty shitty publisher, but they've been able to manage to release a really good product because Take-Two just seems to kind of leave them alone, which you don't see with a lot of other publishers. Because if you look at, we're going to use Rocksteady with Warner Brothers with their recent Suicide Squad game, how really bad that game ended up being, and just a live service game that absolutely didn't make sense to be live service. And now Warner Brothers just came out and announced that they're going to lean more into that, saying that like the volatility of AAA games with single player games is not, we don't want to dive into that anymore. We're going to model more games after Suicide Squad. And what if Hogwarts Legacy was a live service game? They want to do that. It's like, but you just tried a game that did not work. And you're going to use a game that did work as an example of what not to do. It doesn't make sense to me. And ultimately, like with Activision, you look at the profits of like their board members and their CEO and like the bonuses that they get. They absolutely refuse to take a pay cut, even though they can more than afford to do it. And there are some developers, I get it. There are some places where it's like, well, layoffs do happen. Anybody that's ever been in a union or been in a trade understands that like when the job is done, people get laid off and then you just go find another job. But in the gaming industry, it seems like the job is never done. There's another job lining up, but the amount of projects that get floated towards a publisher, they say no to more than they say yes. They want for something, what's going to make us the most money. And I get it on a business aspect that's fine and all, but I mean, they don't consider what the players want. And the studios that do consider what the players want end up having a lot of success with smaller, dev teams. And I mean, look at Nintendo. Nintendo, to avoid laying off mass amounts of people, the CEO took a pay cut and rejected the bonus. And like that was the good play to do because they kept the team and then they were able to manage to crank out games that they wanted to crank out. Activision, EA, they don't ever do that stuff. I mean, Respawn, with this EA layoff, Respawn had about 10 projects that they wanted to pitch to EA and they all said no. Titanfall 3 was one of them. EA refuses to allow Titanfall 3 to ever exist. Star Wars was another game. The first person Mandalorian shooter that they were talking about doing, EA said no to that, and they just laid a bunch of people off. It's like these big publishers don't want to give the developers these awesome creative ideas that they have, for the mere fact that they just want to find something that's profitable, follow a trend, and all that shit. And it's like when I hear someone talk about they want to be a game dev, I tell them probably not want to do that, because when I got into my major as a software developer, I wanted to be in game development, but I've been doing like gaming podcast shit and in the gaming news since like 2019, and I've seen the volatility of the gaming industry, and that's why I decided not to do that. As much as I absolutely would love to do game development, I never would want to do that for like a big studio. I'm in a game programming class right now that I'm paying for out of pocket because it's outside of my program. The GI Bill won't cover it, but I want to learn how to use the Unreal Engine as a side hobby.
Like, I look at this as an opportunity, right? This is how entrepreneurialism really comes to the forefront, right? Is, in the big companies are sucking up all the bandwidth, and they're not allowing creativity to flourish, right? By controlling the time, controlling the work being done. It forces the people that are being laid off to start their own businesses and bring forward their own ideas, right? And it also inspires guys like us that are not professional. We're not getting paid within the industry, but we have the ability to learn. We have the ability and the access to create these things, right? So like, everybody can download Unity today, and you can build a pretty cool game in Unity, right? If you have Photoshop and you understand normal mapping and you understand how to build physics within the game, that that is all what you can watch on YouTube. Right? You can get that entire education on YouTube.
Oh, absolutely.
You can do all this
damn near anything on YouTube.
Absolutely. YouTube
right?
is
So
essential.
it's a matter of just like, are you going to sit down and really take the time to educate yourself on something that you might be passionate about, that can go forward and do your dream, right? So like, I've never created a board game. I fucked around with some stupid shit in my past, but I spent 3 years developing this concept of the Omega project, and I had to teach myself a lot of stuff that I didn't know. A lot of things I already learned through my education, but I never practically applied them. So I was knocking the cobwebs off of that stuff. But everything else I didn't know, I had to teach myself, and I had to play this thing over and over and over and over till I was like, okay, now I can bring in a test group.
When did you finish your degree?
Over and over. I finished my degree in 2012, graduated cum laude.
Okay. So, hell, a lot of that stuff is probably outdated at this point with the advancements of game development.
With Unreal 7, like, I don't know anything about that. Like, if you were to drop me into that platform right now, I'd be like, oh, I'm all thumbs, man. I don't know. Like, give me Unity.
Yeah, I'm currently using, like, with my game project right now for my class, I'm using the Unreal Engine now. I think the highest it's at right now is 5.3, and I've never touched a game engine ever. It's very, very complicated, but it's just spending, and the big thing that you said, actually spending the time to mess around with it and learn it, which actually had me wondering, where the fuck do you find the time? Especially you. Like, you have no time as it is. You're an extremely busy person. Like, where do you find the time to actually, like, do this shit?
And you got a family.
Yeah, I've got 3 kids, a wife. My dad's living with me. I don't sleep, man. I sleep maybe 4 hours a night, and but I've got that creator. I like this creative thing that just won't let me stop, right? And
yeah,
if you walk into my house, like into my creative studio, there's fucking shit everywhere, all sorts of projects, and I'm just going doosh doosh doosh, and when I get to the end, go back to the first and doosh doosh and start moving through all these things. I've got paintings, everywhere in this place, and but it's the madness of the creator, right? It's like you have something in your head, and until you get it out, you will be relentless and restless until you can express it. And that's how, I've been able to do a lot of these things in my creative side for so many years, is that I just let it take control. And, to the point where I become neurotic, I'm like, okay, I got to set this down for a minute. This is becoming too much, and it's not healthy for me. And I'll come back to it in a little bit. So that's how I've been managing it.
My ADHD brain is like, yeah, I'm going to start this. And then I have unfinished projects everywhere.
I'm sure Blake is the same way. You being a TikToker and shit, dude. Like, it's like, where do you find the time to do all this stuff between school and everything?
It's honestly like that's the beautiful thing about TikTok too, since it's all short form mainly. There's not much work into it other than the idea and just doing it. It's everything I post is pretty much a rough draft, right? Like, there's no real big, like, okay, let's proofread it, proof watch it, all this stuff. It's all really rough draft. But that's where I find my time, is like, if I got 5 minutes or whatever, and I have like what I think is a really good idea, I can usually film it in a couple minutes and put it out. Granted, that came with doing it thousands of times.
Which, yeah, yesterday we went through, like, because me and Blake both, like, I used to make YouTube videos. I mean, like, with a podcast and stuff, I still kind of technically do. But we were going through, like, all of the videos we recorded before an edit, and just like how many takes it takes us to make something, and just how pissed off at ourselves we get, because we're like, a creative person is a perfectionist. So, like, we are never satisfied with what we created, and we always nitpick everything that we did, and we try to get it to how we want it, even though it'll never be how we want it. And that's like the other part of the creative process, is the time that you spend trying to make it away, when sometimes it's good to just leave it well enough alone and let it just do its thing. But yeah.
Speaking of leaving it, are any of your games available yet?
So Make a Project is Infamy is the first in the series, and I've got April 29th will be the end of the campaign. So I'm hoping that it's successful. Within 4 weeks of the end of that campaign, I should have all of the the 200-page manual, which is super sexy. So I'm going to spend some time after this podcast and create some videos to put it on the Kickstarter page. But I'll get the manual printed and all the accessories that come along with the Kickstarter campaign. So you get it's all layered, from, the basic operators kit to a crew chief, crew chief, kingpin, and most wanted. So every one of those rewards, at different costs, will have different things that are part of that. So all that will start flowing out into the space. I won't make what is available on the Kickstarter available on the store at rage6.com, because I want those to be exclusive. The only thing that will be available will be the manual itself. Then probably create some other things that will go onto the website that will complement the initial field manual.
Hell yeah,
Looking
dude.
forward to it. When do you think you're gonna fully release?
I'd like everything to be out in the public by my birthday, August 15th.
Okay.
So
I'll be able to play
around
when
the
I
end
get
of
back from
summer.
deployment.
You're not gonna be back by then, dude.
It's a rad game.
I said when I get back.
It's a rad. It sounds like a rad game. Like, so me and my wife kind of want to get into some tabletop stuff, and we got a game that ended up being insanely complicated, that we were just like, what do we do? What was it, honey? What was the name of that game that we got?
She's just been down there the whole time.
Yeah, she's been down here the whole time. We have a couple's game room, so her desk is right across from mine. And usually when I have
That's
an
great.
in-person guest, like, I have another microphone and a camera that faces that direction. So, what was it called? Fuck,
That's
I
how
don't
me and him
remember
used to do podcasts across from each other, and then I got stationed.
It was like this board game. It's not even really a board. It kind of is a board game, but like, it was a tabletop game that was just like, it tried to be like an MMORPG type game that just has like 1,000 fucking rules, and like, we were sitting there watching like hour-long YouTube videos while playing it, and I'm just like, but it's in a universe that was just like, we couldn't understand the universe. But the cyberpunk thing I could 100% get into, because let's be honest, like, I'm kind of a sucker for cyberpunk worlds.
What's your
The,
poison of gaming as far as current, if you have one?
My favorite game right now. I'm stuck. I'm stuck on Cyberpunk 2077 for some reason.
Okay.
I still like it with all of its flaws, and there've been some patches and updates to it that just.
Oh, it's significantly better now.
Oh yeah.
I bought that when it came out for my Xbox, and obviously it had its huge problems, and I quit playing it because it just got to a point I was like, all right, I'm not having fun anymore. But a few months ago, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stream this game. I'm going to play it again. I'm going to stream it. I had repurchased it for my PC, and it sat in my Steam for like 3 or 4 months before I touched it again. Finally did, and I was like, oh my God, I have been missing out. I forgot how much I love this game. Like, and I didn't realize how far I got into it on my first playthrough, because I was like, I'll play for 2 hours, and then it'll all be new. No, I was so close to the end of the game when I quit playing it. I was like, shit, man.
I started playing Cyberpunk when it first came out too, in its most absolute broken state, and I kept calling it the most broken game that it's like the worst game that I can't stop playing. That's what I kept calling it, because like the narrative and everything was cool, but the immersion just wasn't there like it was promised. But these updates that they put out made the game like exponentially better. The new expansion they put out is crazy good. But yes, the Cyberpunk universe is a very interesting universe. This is why I like it a lot.
Have you played Baldur's Gate 3?
I've not played Baldur's Gate 3.
I'm surprised.
I wanted to get it, but after I played the last D&D console game, I was like, what the fuck? They did it again, and they gave me a half-assed piece of shit game.
This one almost won Game of the Year.
No, what do you mean it almost? It won Game of the Year.
Did it really?
Yes.
Did it? Okay. All right. I take it away. It won Game of the Year.
Yeah, and plus a bunch of other awards. Like I can tell you right now, like this will not be the same experience as that D&D bullshit you said you played. This is like you'll spend probably 40 hours in the first act alone. Like that's just how the game is. Okay. Like it's like there's 3 acts. The first act is the longest, but like it can be even longer than that because there's just so much in it, and there's just so many different paths that you can take to this game, like with their story. And there's even the Dark Urge playthrough where it's like you have this psychotic part of you that you can't control that makes you a psychopath and a murderer. And basically it's a fucking roll of the dice of whether or not you kill your companion. Literally, like at night when everyone's asleep, you're just like hovering over one of them and you're like, I want to cut their throat open right now. Do a saving throw. Oh, you failed your save throw. Guess what? Your favorite companion was just murdered. And it's like, fuck.
Yeah. But it's like the game tests I've done on Omega on these groups, like that's where this game goes, is the dark depravity, right? Where like I've seen groups that are opening like prostitution, human sex trafficking rings as their business, and they're making money off of this shit, or like some really fucked up drug trade that they're involved in. It's interesting where the human mind will go when you're giving them the opportunity to have fun, and in a no holds bar type of environment. So when games like Baldur's Gate, where you get that alternative experience, like that captures people's attention because they don't get to experience that ever, right? So now it's in your hands, and you can engage with it. Like, maybe I should kill this guy. Why not?
Well, the other thing about Baldur's Gate is that your actions, usually a lot of games where it's like your actions kind of have a consequence or an equal or opposite reaction, but to a degree in certain games where they made Cyberpunk, like when they first marketed it, saying that like all your actions have like a consequence to it. All your decisions have weight. And then I'm not really being true, but Baldur's Gate truly does. Like they've made accounts to everything. Like if you kill a person that you really shouldn't have killed, they've implemented a way in the game where they have a replacement character for that person. If you killed that person, they have someone else that takes their place. It's kind of like a background way of like making sure it still flows without breaking it. But like you can really be the absolute hero of all, or the absolute biggest piece of shit in the entire game. It's entirely up to you. So it's
Ever,
a
like,
very fun game.
when are we going to get a next Leisure Suit Larry?
Oh my god, yeah. Probably given the state of like the country nowadays, probably fucking never.
Never.
Or
never.
Bully. They kept talking, like Rockstar kept throwing out the idea of like, we're gonna make another Bully game, and you look back to the first Bully game and you're just like,
Well, yeah.
they will never
would
make
get-
that game.
It would get canceled so fast.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, shit, like Red Dead is like one of my favorite just fallback games. Like whenever I'm like, well, what I'm gonna play Red Dead. I'll just go ride a horse and kill a shit ton of cowboys for like 6 hours.
But the story in that game, my wife was like, I never could get into Red Dead. I'm like, play it. And she played it and she was just like, she beat the whole game. And then she's like, I can't believe I never played this game. It was the same with me for The Witcher 3. Like I kept playing it and putting it down. And then I finally finished it. And I was like, I did myself a disservice by not playing this thing.
Like, why do you have the surprised look on your face?
Speaking of Red Dead, I've never been emotionally impacted by a game before. This was the first game that emotionally impacted me, other than Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I cry every time I play that game. Anyway, when spoiler alert, if you haven't played Red Dead 2 for some reason, when Arthur died, I immediately deleted the game. I
How
didn't even
dare
finish
you?
it.
I was gonna play it today.
Bro, there's a whole more
was
game
so
after that.
fucking mad. I know. I'm gonna go back and play it again and do the the next chapter. But I was so mad because I was so invested in that character. Loved Arthur Morgan so much that when he just dead, and the way he died, because I got the bad ending death.
Oh, of course you did.
So
No wonder why.
I
you
was
deleted
like,
it.
nah, dude, fuck this, and I deleted the game. So
Did you not?
I gotta
play
go back and replay
Did you
it.
not play the first Red Dead Redemption?
I did.
So you should have known better.
After. No. After.
Okay, I played before, so I knew. I'm like, well, we're playing as Arthur Morgan. I'm pretty sure this dude's gonna die.
Well, it was the way he died that pissed me off. Because again, I got the bad ending death. So
Your fault.
Where is
I
it,
was a
Deb?
piece of shit.
What were you gonna say,
What is
Tim?
for everybody else? What is the biggest reaction you've had to a video game? What was the title?
The
Biggest reaction? What do you mean?
You either had a highly emotional response to it, or you're like, "Fuck this game," and you threw it out the window.
I mean, I'll just say Helldivers recently because
See,
been
he's talking
all
about
in.
which game emotionally impacted you the most.
emotionally
So I think the one game that pissed me off and I kind of stopped playing it was The Last of Us Part 2. And like for me, it was just like, dude, it felt Last of Us Part 2 for me felt the same way Game of Thrones Season 8 felt for me. Like I played it and I was just like, what the fuck was the point of all of this? Why did we go this direction with this? And I just like, no. And I know it's a good game, technically and narratively it's a good game, but that alone was just like, you just completely flushed away all the things that we built up in the first game, and I don't understand why. And I think probably Red Dead Redemption 2 is like the one where I was just like, damn, I was really attached to those characters, and like, you know, it's just like you felt the impact of it, and like especially if you did the high honor for Arthur, and you're just like him coming to terms with the end, him coming to terms and correcting all the bad that he's done, shit like that. It was just like, oh, and then your horse dies, and you're like, fuck, I love that horse. I kept the same horse throughout the whole game, and I was just like, and it was one of the legendary horses you can find in the game, and I was like, that was like the best horse in the game. Do I get it back? Can I go find it again? Because like, or is this now, did I just sacrifice the best horse you can find? So yeah.
Right.
probably
Mine was
go ahead.
gone.
Nope.
Okay, mine was definitely, like I said, as far as emotionally charged, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, because throughout it you're this like Viking woman, right? And she suffers with
Schizophrenia.
What is it? Schizophrenia. Yeah, so you're hearing voices the entire time you're playing, and you've got, you know, the angel and devil like voices. So you've got the one that's just kind of like, you got this, Senua, get up, you got this, keep fighting. And then you got the other one is literally in your ear going, kill yourself, you're never gonna make it, you're never gonna get your husband back,
It's a
kill yourself,
trippy
stop
game.
fighting. And you are just fighting through every fucking level, and you're also dying because you get infected in the beginning of the game. So it's like, if you get killed too many times, the game ends and you got to restart. Anyway, you're doing all this just to get to the end of this game, and Senua is coming to terms with everything, and she's having this like coming to Jesus moment almost as she's fighting. What's the chick? She's like a
Hell.
Yeah,
Hella.
I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
Hella. Yeah. So you're fighting Hella at the end, and you don't really realize it because you're so into the game. But in that moment, you're not supposed to win. But I get emotional thinking about it.
It took me too long to realize that that's not a fight you can win.
You were like, yeah, you're fighting your ass off to survive because you've decided I want to live. I want to keep going. And it, sorry. It's one of those things where it's like, you resonate when you've like had those thoughts of quitting.
Yeah.
So that fight is big. Sorry. Doc, talk, fuck.
Have you?
I'm gonna be basic. I'm gonna be real basic with it because it's so cliche and but it's so iconic and it's so real, especially because at the age that we all started playing it. The original Call of Duty sagas, when Shepard just completely betrays you and you just never fucking saw it coming. Ghost, he just guns you down, kills Ghost, and like it's like the biggest betrayal in gaming history in my eyes, as far as what I grew up playing.
Yeah.
As far as like a not super in-depth game, like as far as like an in-depth game, I would say Assassin's Creed Odyssey, just because the story was so incredible, so amazing. I was tied emotionally to the whole thing, and when it was over, I was like, I don't know what to do now. What is this? This is over. But Call of Duty, that shock factor of the original story, and every single time, because it's so impactful that every single time you go back and you play it, you see that scene, and you're like, "Fuck you, Shepard! Fuck you!"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Every time.
What about you, Tim? What was the game for you?
I am gonna have to say, remember the encounter with Psycho Mantis and Metal Gear Solid?
Which one was that?
Barely.
That was That was the original, and you had to take the controller out and put it into the second game port to beat the character.
Oh yes, I
and
heard about this.
For months, getting so angry at this game, and it ended up like the whole Metal Gear Solid series. They're probably in my mind the best writing ever, and the producers just as a
Hideo Kojima,
fucking yes, yeah, and he's just and this has been done before, right? He took that page right out of Nintendo's Duck Hunt, like where like you can control the dog with the second controller.
Mm-hmm.
And study this in game school. It's like, what the fuck, man? That was so brilliant. Yeah, that was the game for me. Like, it got such a reaction from me. The story within that whole scope of the first game of like Solid Snake, and then you learn in all like in the follow-on games of the cloning program and the boss and how all the whole thing works. Like, this is like a fucking movie, and they should make a movie out of it, in my opinion.
They should, but
I'm also surprised they haven't.
Well, that's probably because when it comes to putting games on screen, it's very, very hard to do. Believe it or not, I don't know why, but like it's extremely hard to do. But also to honor the fan base, that's the other hard thing to do. Because if you look at Halo right now, they're right now talking about the fall of Reach, and they just butcher Master Chief and the way that it's the way it's done. It's done improperly. Last of Us is probably the best screen adaptation of a game that I've seen in a while. Even though that the second game kind of really broke my heart, but like the show really captured the game, and then even added to the game without taking anything away. So they did a very good job with that.
Have you seen Twisted Metal, the TV show?
I have not, but I heard it's good.
Phenomenal.
I heard it's good.
It was perfect. It was
Sweet
done
Tooth?
so well.
Fucking Samoa Joe is Sweet Tooth.
Yes.
Yeah,
It does the
like
game.
Will Arnett was the voice, man. It was so well done.
I know.
It does the game so much justice. Honestly, it's exactly how I would picture the game as a show or movie. Like, because it has like that comedy aspect to it. Because like you couldn't not laugh at that game.
No, absolutely not. The game is
But
absolutely.
it had like that really fucked up part of it where you're like, this is pretty sadistic.
I've been stuck in Helldivers 2 right now, so I can't really even think of anything else.
Perfect though.
I got to pick that title up.
It's
It's a lot of fun with friends.
it's
That's for
ri-
sure.
man.
It's Starship Troopers meets Terminator, and it's like it's the most ridiculous shit, but it's the most fun I've had with friends in a game since the early COVID days.
And it's so simple.
It's so simple. It's amazing.
It's like it's a little bit like Destiny in a sense.
Not at all. I'm sorry. No, it's not. I've got 800 hours in Destiny 2, you motherfucker. It's nothing like Destiny at all. It's not a looter shooter.
the little tidbits of lore too in it. I've noticed they like I feel like they release voice lines or like little commercials on your ship over like with each update. I was talking to one like crew member the other day, and they were like, "Oh man, I remember my favorite holiday on Super Earth was All Heroes Eve. The parents would dress up as Bugs, and all the kids would run out of the front door, fire 3 shots in the air, say no fascism here, Bugs." And then we go reenact this great war and eat cake.
And where it's like, I can't wait to find out who I'm voting for, or it was like, I can't wait to find out who's being voted for me in the next upcoming election, because it's because Super Earth is basically like a total totalitarian government run by.
It's hilarious because it's like if America made a game.
Pretty much, it's democracy, liberty, freedom, and shit.
It's hilarious. Like the propaganda in the game is hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
I heard one the other day. It was like, it said, show how free you want to be by giving up your retirement and re-enlist in the Helldivers. It's like they're talking to dudes that are like been in 20 years, you know, and they're like, "No, keep doing it.
Keep
for
going
democracy."
for democracy. Sacrifice yourself."
We're not too far away from that.
No, we're fucking not. No, we are not.
That's like where the irony of the game is. I was like, some of the things, the decisions that they made in the game, I'm like, this game really is like the military. Like they're nerfing weapons. And then like some of the devs are like, we've designed it for you to feel inadequate. We don't want you to have good shit. And I'm like, this game really is like the military. In the beginning, the servers, I was stuck in a waiting queue for just hours on end. Just didn't know when I was going to get in the game. I'm like, well, hurry up and wait. Here we go again.
The cool thing that the game does that a lot of games don't do is that they have one guy called a game master who can manipulate the ongoing galactic war, because everybody's collectively playing towards a goal. Like we're fighting the same fronts all around, and like the progress is collectively progressing. However many people are fighting, to liberate one planet, everybody's contributing to that. But there's one guy who's they call him the DM or GM, who is essentially like a DM that oversees the whole game and can either help you or hinder you by throwing reinforcements or fucking with the progress and shit like that. So it's like an organic game that like one person is constantly manipulating while you're playing it. And you see it happen, because in the middle of a game, things will be going pretty quiet and you're like, hey, it's going pretty smooth. And now all of a sudden you have like 15 giant bugs that are like not supposed to be on that difficulty. And you're like, what is happening right now? And that's the GM throwing shit at you.
You've seen Starship Troopers, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's exactly like that.
It's exactly like that. So definitely, I recommend playing it.
I'm gonna have to pick it up.
Well, Tim,
what's your platform?
PS5.
PS5.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Woo! PlayStation gang.
That surprises me because
I have enough RAM to put nuclear missiles into space. Xbox can't do that.
Facts.
I'm surprised you don't have a PC. I figured if anybody would have a PC, it'd be you.
I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just jam on the PlayStation. I'm old school. Like, I grew up with the PlayStation. As in the barracks, and didn't have a computer in the barracks.
Right? Yeah.
You heard it here, guys.
He's a PlayStation
Tim's on
player.
PlayStation.
Well, Tim, we're not going to keep you too much longer. We've been at it for almost 2.5 hours, and I know you're a busy guy, and daylight savings time just happened, so you have less time now. Like, so because that's still a fucking thing. Hey, could you guys actually like camp out of the Capitol for this shit too, to get this to stop?
I was just talking about that this morning. Like, isn't there supposed to be like some legislation that they're passing to do away with
I
this?
remember them
That-
talking about
was
that
years
that
ago.
It was supposed to happen like one time and never again, and it never passed.
No, and it never passed. And like here we are. We're like, I thought that was the last daylight savings time, and then it happens again. I'm like, what is happening? And it's just like, what do we have to do to get this to officially stop? Because it's driving me nuts. I thought I slept in. I'm like, wait, why is it 11 o'clock already? I set my alarm for 9, and I didn't realize that, like, oh, the clock's fucking changed. But
Nope, I was awake when the clock changed. So
yeah, both of you were.
but
But
we
yeah,
were on
Tim-
Helldivers. We were fighting for democracy.
I was spending time with my wife. Okay. But yeah, Tim, so thanks for hanging out with us today, man. We greatly appreciate it. I know we were supposed to do it yesterday, but like, you were busy and we can't like
Hey, it wouldn't be a military thing if we weren't waiting on
it was funny. It was funny. We were saying because we were just like, this truly is a military podcast because we're all in the final formation waiting for First Sergeant to come out and give us, the go ahead. So it was like,
I love it.
So-
It doesn't life imitating art.
exactly, man. But well, yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Tim, you're awesome, and we love you guys. We appreciate it. We'll put
check the description for all of Tim's stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna put all your stuff in the description. The links to the Rage 6 website, the Kickstarter, all that stuff. And if there's anything else that you want us to add on there, like for other stuff that's not gaming related, definitely send it and DM it to us. We'll put it in there too. So. But anyway, love you guys. Appreciate y'all. And we'll see you at the next party. Bye.